Hey, welcome back to another video. This video is going to be on building a contact form using Laravel, Inertia, and Vue. This is what we use at work, so this feels pretty close to home. This was requested in a video a while ago, and I'm just getting to it now, so I hope you get some value from this. I just want to mention before we start that this video is sponsored by Cloudways. Cloudways is your one-stop shop for Laravel and WordPress hosting or anything really PHP-based. I've been using them since 2016. They've never let me down, so if you're looking for a high-quality managed VPS service, I highly recommend looking into cloudways.com using the link in the description below. And if you use the code DavidG, you get a discount. Anyways, in this video, we're going to start with a brand new Laravel project. I've already installed it. You're looking at it. I've installed Laravel Breeze using Inertia and Vue. That's an option now in the installer. And I'm using SQLite. If you're using this as a video to figure out how to install Inertia and Vue into an existing Laravel project, this is not going to be the one for you. I'm just using what the installer installs because this video would be probably 2 hours long if it was start to finish. So the first thing I want to do is open up the project here. Look at the routes file. It's just typical Laravel. You can see that this is the main entry point or the main route. So we're just going to DD1 to make sure we're working on the right page. This is where the contact form is going to live. And that means we have to create a Vue component. So I'm going to create one in a folder called contact form, and then I'm going to call it index. This is just kind of convention. I know it's kind of silly for a video like this, but this is what you would do. And we are going to, actually, I have some notes on the side. I haven't prepared that much, but the Vue part I have because writing Tailwind on the fly is tough. So this is the Tailwind. We're going to go over it. And I also have the script section to create. Now I'm going to use the options API because that's what I'm familiar with. It might be outdated, but it is what it is. It's what works best for me. If you're a composition API or whatever it's called, guy, then or gal, then sorry. And you're going to want to export default. Just looking at what I have on the side. You're going to want to add a data method. I'm going to add this, and then we can go over the code. And this should return an object, and the main thing in this would be the form, which would use the use form helper that Inertia provides. So for those of you who are completely new, Inertia just makes it really nice to glue Vue and Laravel as a backend together in the same app. It's not an SPA thing, it's a single page app thing where the front end and back end are hosted separately. It just glues it nicely together, and it gives you all these cool helpers to submit forms and do anything you need to do, really. So if we look above here, this is actually one example. So apparently, this is the first time I'm using this. This is kind of cool. If you submit the form, there will be a temporary, like a small time where form.recently successful turns true and will show the success message. And that's a success message I actually have to set. So I'm going to just copy that from my notes here. Let's do that. We're going to put it above form. And we need... First of all, we need, well, not first of all, but we need a method called submit form to submit the form. And then we need form.name, form.email, and form.message. So I'm going to do that first. So name, email, and message. We're just going to leave them as blank strings. That's fine. And we're going to go here. Forgot a comma. Do methods. Submit form. And well, let's leave that. And let's see if the page actually loads. Because right here we're gonna have to create a form first, or a route rather. So we can't submit to anything. And to test that this page works, let's go here and do contact form index. And this Inertia render will will render it. Let's see what happens. Internal server error. That's not nice. Oh, of course, because I haven't built the app. So let's go to package. And so based on this, because we're using Vite, I'm going to open a new tab and do npm I and npm run dev. Awesome. That was very fast. I love Vite. Okay. Well, it's not pretty, but it'll work. This is a page I borrowed from a previous tutorial, and I didn't expect it to be that ugly, but we'll make it work. Okay, I know what we're going to do. I mean, it is a bit crude, but it's too ugly to work on. So I'm going to set the outer thing to a little bit lighter gray. I'm going to do that as well here. And I'm going to set this a little darker so it's obvious that that's an input. And I believe that it'd be the same here. Yep. And I'm going to multi-cursor this and do border gray 300. This isn't a Tailwind tutorial, so we'll have to just work with that. It's not great, but it'll work. So, because the really most important thing is actually how to wire it up correctly. So with Inertia and Vue, what you're going to want to really pay attention to here is this form.name. You set a vModel form.name, and the use form helper will kind of work out the rest. And it'll also broadcast errors. I don't know if broadcast is the right term. It'll send back errors specific to that key already in the data that it sends back to the Vue if your request fails, if it doesn't validate correctly, because we will have to validate this request that it is a legit email. The name is, at least long enough and the message is not too long. Like these kinds of things will happen and an error will pop up. So let's just submit the form right after we create a route. So let's create a route, post. Let's do contact submit. And we'll probably have to create a controller for this. That would be neater. So let's just go in here and duplicate. Oh, I don't have my tooling here. Interesting. So we're going to copy and paste. And we're going to call this, first of all, rename. Wow, I can't even rename. Okay. We're going to call this submit contact form controller. This is called an invocable controller because it only serves one purpose, and that purpose is submitting the form. So we're going to remove all of this because we do not need it. And this, and we're going to do __ invoke and have the request here. And hopefully, yeah, that should be good. All right, and this request will come in and get validated. For now, let's just make sure that stuff even comes in. So we're going to just DD all of it out. And I'm not so sure about the returning response. We'll see. Cool. And this route will go, so submit contact form request controller class. And because it's an invocable controller, you don't have to specify a method, which means that you don't need to add it in as an array. It should just work like this. And I'm going to name it. So this will be name contact form dot submit. In the real world, you're probably going to want to like rate limit this so it's not overwhelming the system and there's no funny business going on. But for now, this should be okay. And so let me make this a little bit bigger. So with Inertia, we could take the form object here, and it's a special object. It's the use form, and we could just do this dot form dot post this dot route. I believe, yeah, URL string. So we need this dot route, which is something from the Ziggy package that comes pre-installed when you install Breeze. And I mean, for now that should work. Let's go to the form here and see what happens. So if I type in this and this, oh yeah, classic. Right, so that's how you submit. Pretty easy. And the one thing that we should probably do is if you pass in an object here and you use the key on success. Now I'm reading from my notes here because there's just too much to remember. You can do this dot form dot reset. So this is another helper that's very, very cool from Inertia. Reset will remember the original state that you set in the use form object. So it'll always empty out whatever the inputs were on a successful submission. So let's see now. And I'm going to remove that DD. I'm just going to return so we can actually see that that success message comes up. I haven't used that before, so I'm interested to see. Wow, and it does. And it's like also ugly, but that's okay. So we have the data coming into the controller. What do we want to do next? We want to do request validate. We want to make sure that name is required. It's a string. I don't know, we can do a minimum of 3 characters. And I think a text column in the database is max 255. So we could do that. And for email, we'll do email. And we'll leave the rest because a valid email can only be so long. And also message is also required. String, we could do, yeah, let's do minimum 10. I mean, it should be a valid, you know what, let's not do a minimum. It's fine. It'll be fine. And then a max long text. I think if I use the long text inside the database, I'll have to double check this. It could be thousands of characters, but really, do you want anything over 2,000? I mean, I wouldn't want to read that. So this should now validate, and assuming this passes, it should not send anything to the front end, but let's check it. So if that's a legit email, the name, intentionally I left it to be too small because it's minimum 3. So the name field must be at least 3 characters. It's kind of like easy to demo this because it's so magical. It's showing in this v-if form.errors.name. If you open this up and you go to your view, what's happening here in the index component is it sends back the errors thing, and if name is populated, which in this case it is, form.errors.name will show, and we've styled it to be text red and show up below. So great, this is all amazing. But if we want to actually submit it something correct, right? Do that. It'll submit. I mean, it doesn't save anywhere, but it's allowing us to submit. So I think the next step will be to do PHP artisan make migration, add. Ooh. Well, actually, we want to make a model really. So PHP artisan make model. Let's call it form submission. And I want to make a migration with it. So let's do that. So in our app now, there should be form submission. And immediately, before I forget, because this always trips me up, you're going to want to do a protected guarded equal to empty array. This means all columns that belong to this model through the table, through Eloquent, will be fillable to your application. You're going to want to make sure that this is set like this, so all your columns are configurable from Eloquent. And the next step would be that migration. So it's probably named create form submissions table. Yep. And so what do we need now? So we need table string name, and that's going to be not nullable. We want the email, and we want message. But I think I can set the length. Yeah, so let's just do 2,000. I don't know. It's arbitrary, but yeah, that's just my choice. It doesn't necessarily need to be that. And if I now if I click table plus, you can see my tables here. I'm sorry, I can't make it bigger. But we have users, nobody's registered. I mean, whatever. We're not working on that right now. But if I now run migrations, there should be a form submissions table. So PHP artisan migrate. Let's go back, and there is. Beautiful. This should now be max length of 2,000. Where is that set? I guess not. So I've done some reading, and I think it's a mistake to use string, especially considering I'm using SQLite. You're going to have to figure this out for your database of choice. We usually use Postgres, so this is kind of new to me. One of the great things is that we can easily revert that migration. So PHP artisan migrate, rollback step 1. And we can change this now to text, which apparently supports a huge text for saving, and we can migrate this again. So PHP artisan migrate, and let's check the thing now, and it should be a text, which is fine. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go back into our controller, and we can now wrap this in form submission create, because the request validate will return an array. So you can just wrap it. It's very convenient. And because it's a post, we don't necessarily need to return back. A lot of my VS Code tooling is not working, which is interesting. App models form submission. There we go. So that should be good. And in theory now, I should be able to save this to the database, which would be awesome. So david@g.com, test, submit. Okay, it's been submitted successfully. This will disappear. And now in our database, it should exist, which it does. So I'm going to leave this here for now, and we're going to move on to the mail part. And I think that's going to be really fun. So let's go ahead and do that. One of the things I want to mention is I'm going to use a service called Mailtrap for storing the mail coming out of my app. I haven't done this locally in a long time with a new app, so I might have some queuing issues, but I think we can figure it out. The really handy thing about Mailtrap, and this is not a sponsorship or anything, it's just an awesome tool, even in the free tier. You'll see you can use the env stuff here, the credentials. They'll create them for you. You can copy this into your app. Open up your env, and you can replace your typical mail stuff here with what they provide. Oh, my mail password is not good. What is that? Okay, I'm going to copy this. Okay, so once you have that configured with the mail password, don't just copy it like this because it's not going to work. You're going to want to click the copy here. Once we have this set up, we can actually see what's coming out of our local inside this mailtrap.io service. And it's like amazing. It's the best thing ever. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to start a queue after we create a mailable and send all this stuff out. So let's maybe start on that. That means that I have to do PHP artisan, make mail contact form submission mail. Okay, that's our mailable. Let's open that up here. Okay, so we already have queuable here as a trait, which means it will queue. We're just going to have to pass in what we need. So I apologize. This is new. Let's not touch this. So it expects you, I guess, to make the view thing, the content, which is interesting, but we can do that. So let's go to views. We can make a new folder named mail. We can do a contact form submission blade.php, I'd assume. So we can copy this name, contact. So mail.contact form submission. And apparently these public properties that we have up here will be accessible in our mailable thing. So I hope that's enough. We can take this and queue it. So how we do that is we do mail to admin@awesomeapp.com, just a random name email for test purposes. Queue new contact form submission email, and then we have to pass in all our things. So I'm just going to put them in one by one. I mean, maybe you don't need to, but whatever. Maybe it'll be more obvious if I do it like this. Email and message. And now this needs an import. So I'll do use, let's see what the namespace is here. Use app, use, app, mail, contact form submission mail. We're going to do this. And we need to import mail. So use illuminate, I knew it was illuminate, support, facades, and mail. Okay, so I mean, technically, if I go, well, it won't really actually show, will it? I have to go in here and create something. So let's just do something simple. Let's do unordered list, old school, list item. And since it's blade, it should be available like this. And we can do name. I should have copied it here. So name, email, message, And I would think that that's enough. Let's see. I have the instructions here. I knew I'd have to use them for something, but it is what it is. Alternatively, you could actually this is more efficient. I don't know why I didn't do this to begin with. So form submission, you can import that form submission. I don't know why it's allowing me to do that here, but whatever. And then you can take that form submission in here, form submission, and then that. So you're passing in the whole object is much cleaner. I don't know why I didn't think of this first, but you just pass in form submission. Okay, and we don't have that right now, but we'll save it here. Form submission. Just want to make sure that's the same. Yep, it matches. So if I make the text a little smaller so you can see the whole thing, we're saving the form submission, and then we are sending an email to admin@awesomeapp.com queued. We're using the contact form submission mail, and the form submission objects being passed in. And if we look in here, it's being passed in because we're labeling it public in the constructor parameters. It doesn't need to be declared up here. And apparently with new Laravel mailables, you can go into your contact form submission.blade.php file. You just got to make sure that you have the directory correctly set, and you can use that object in here like so. So we have name, email, and message because that's the three pieces of data that the user is passing in. Okay, that was a lot to say, but let's see if we can run the queue. So PHP artisan queue clear, just to make sure it's cleaned up. Perfect. Queue work. So PHP artisan queue work should start the default queue. And in theory, if we're lucky, we're going to see it run here and it'll show up in Mailtrap. So let's see. Test at test.com. And this is a test. So moment of truth. Let's see, running, done. Okay. And wow, it made it in. Okay. So this is the basic kind of theory on how this should work. You should absolutely queue your mails because sometimes you're attaching stuff and it takes forever. We have, well, not that we have, but we should have separate email queues on our worker if you're running a big production site, but that's like nitty gritty stuff. This is really cool. I'm really glad it works this well, and it was relatively simple to code up. I do want to mention one more time, because I really do love the service, that this video is sponsored by Cloudways. This is an app that would be great hosted on Cloudways. Any big Laravel apps or WordPress apps that you have, fantastic place to host them. So if you're looking for a fantastic host, cloudways.com. Link is in the description below. I will include a GitHub link to this code for you to take a look at. It might not be a full repo, but I will include it in. It's like a GitHub, like the snippets or whatever it's called. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any ideas for future videos, I'm trying to do once a week. But if you have any ideas, please do let me know, and I will be happy to make tutorials for you. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.